I'd like to call to order this meeting, this special meeting of the Town Council, to have a presentation to the council of the beach parking proposal. If we would all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is a very important topic for the town of Sunset Beach and for the beach itself. As a special meeting, there will be no public comments here, but Councilman Hargraves will explain that tomorrow and Thursday there will be open houses for you to be able to provide your input, your questions, your suggestions, and concerns over the parking plan. It'll be in the conference room next door. With that, let's get started. Who goes first?
Mr. Dern.
Councilman Dern.
Hi. First thing I want to say is that last August I became ill, very ill, and I wasn't able to hold up my end of this. So I'm going to give my co-chair, Mike, 90% of the credit for this. He really did most of it. Anyway, Mike and I volunteered to co-chair an island parking study. It was decided a committee of 5 island residents, 5 mainland residents, and 2 business owners would be formed. The town received 54 applications for the parking committee. Each applicant was given a number and the names were redacted so we wouldn't know who we were rating. About half of the applicants scored very high, and there was a lot of ties. So we took the top numbers, tossed them in the proverbial hat, and picked 5 from the mainland and 5 from the island. And we had 2 business owners. I want to give credit to this committee. Previous parking studies, there were almost fistfights. Island against mainland, which I always thought was terrible. We're one town. We need to work together, and that's exactly what this committee did. The members of the committee from the island are Pat Alderson, Greg Jensen, Diddy Layton, Jeff Norris, and Stuart Jones. From the mainland, Susan Carpenter, Karen Domanovich, Mike Dickman, Susan Krebs, and Bobby Leonard. And business members are Tracy Hobgood and Julie Gentry. This was a great group to work with. I mean, you know, the island people had some concerns, the mainland people had concerns. We put the rivalries aside and really worked hard. And I got to give them so much credit. They're really at the top of my list. We did talk about paid parking during the committee, but there was so much involved, we didn't do anything with it. And we're not going to be reporting anything on that. That's all I have. It's up to Mike here.
That's it?
That's it.
I got the rest of it? Okay, I got to go up here. Thanks, John. I'm going to go over here because we got a slideshow for you.
Oh, one thing. Remember, Mike spent his career in education.
Well,
So
listen to this.
if he repeats something the second time, it's going to be on the test.
You always learn to, when you want something to really be learned, you say it again. And these guys, they don't get that. I mean, they just want me to get through it. So we'll see how this goes tonight. But
Are you finished yet?
yes, I want to see what happens with this group. It's a good group of people up here. And thank you for being here tonight. That's number one. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your interest in the parking on the island. We started this thing, Charlie and I, almost 2 years ago, talking about it. When John and I Charlie and I ran for council, we heard an awful lot about parking on the beach. And we not only heard it, we heard it from mainlanders and we heard it from islanders. Islanders were just as mad at not having designated parking, not having organized parking on the island, have people parking on their grass lawns, people blocking their driveways and everything else, as the mainlanders wanted to be able to know where to park on the island. So we had a group of people from both places saying, do something about this thing. So it took us about 7 months after that, where there was a survey done. I don't know if you remember when AutoConnect came to council and talked about paid parking. I don't know if you remember that at all. But then we had sessions, and just like we're going to have the next couple of days here, we had sessions in the overflow room here with people, and we did a big report on what we learned from all of that. So that was the beginning of thinking, working on parking on the beach. And from there, well, we formed a committee. We had a two-phase, what's called a two-phase study. We proposed to the council that Charlie and I do a two-phase. Phase one was looking at history, looking at the background of parking. I'll go through that and show you some stuff. And then phase two became working with the committee. The committee had a total of 15 meetings. We started having meetings a little shorter, and they grew longer and longer and longer. And I want to echo what Charlie said, because for me, the key to the success of this committee were a bunch of people who thought about Sunset Beach first and not parochial thinking about where they lived. I'm sure that's in the back of their minds. We all have to think where we live, and hopefully this parking plan is the advantage for where we live. But overall, they always came back to what's best for Sunset Beach. And that's what made this parking committee so good, so good. Now, today you have, and the people watching on YouTube have the opportunity to listen to the parking plan. We did not hand out today the parking plan to all of you when you came in the door. Oh, that's good. So we didn't hand that out to you. We want you to sit back and listen to this thing. What happens many times, you hand something out and everybody goes through it to see if it affects them or something like that. And all we want you to do is pay attention and listen, sit back, listen, and see what you think as you think about this. Now, tomorrow morning, as it says here, the written public parking proposal will be available on the town website, tomorrow morning. Now, the town website, hopefully you know how to get there, www.sunsetbeachnc.gov. And then go under, as you pull up that, there's a bunch of boxes that you can scroll down. One of them is projects. Just open up projects and you'll see the Sunset Beach Island Parking Study 23-24. And you can take it and read it and study it and let us know. Now, after that, we want your input. These people up here have had a preview of this plan, a preview, not in depth, but preview. And so they're seeing it, and they just got a new one put in front of them this evening. So they're going to be able to see this thing. We want them to see it. We want them to learn about it. This group has to make the decisions about this thing. So that's important. Now, for us, we want the next step to be you. So that's why we're having these 2 question and answer open sessions. One is Wednesday from 2 to 4, and one Thursday from 10 to noon. If you can come over, if you got any questions, Charlie and I will be there. Maybe some members of the committee will be there, but we're there to answer your questions, try to explain things, and get your feedback. Now, the other thing you can do if you don't want to come over here, the other thing you do is email or call Charlie and I. I would suggest email. Calls are tough. If you had 40 phone calls, it's tough to start returning those phone calls. But if we get emails, we can read the emails pretty good. So we suggest emails coming to Charlie or I, and the information, just go to the website and our information's right there. And so the final step is for then the council to take this plan, which is a recommendation from the committee, your feedback, and then sit down, deliberate, and decide what to do with these recommendations. As a council, we can approve all of it. We can approve none of it. I don't hope that doesn't happen. Approve parts of it, or just simply make changes. So the council has the last say, but we want your input to be part of that. So don't hesitate to let us know how you feel if you can't make it the next 2 days. And hopefully, we'll get some great input from you and we'll see what happens from there. We're wide open from there. Today, just take your time, sit back and listen and see what you think of this plan. All right, let's go, Charlie. The plan was broken up into 3 parts. One part, history. Second part, talked about issues that the committee faced. And the third part is the plan itself. And the plan is given to you in recommendations. And there's I don't know how many recommendations, but we'll go through them all so you understand them. And the history, let's go back to history now. As I said earlier, this has been on Charlie and on my mind for about 2 years now. And this is the sort of the end, not the end of what we're going to be doing, but it certainly is a stopping point to bring this plan to everybody in Sunset Beach. So we're hoping that it is, hopefully, it's taken, it's looked at, and hopefully you like some of it. That's for sure. Charlie said earlier that they had fistfights sometimes. There's been committees looking at parking on the beach since the 1970s. 1970s. And there hasn't been a very, very successful parking committee ever. And we'll talk about some of those things as time goes on in this thing. It's just a difficult thing. In the beginning, you can guess it. You had people on the island didn't want people coming on the island, so they, and you got people on the mainland, they thought the people on the island didn't like them, and it became, in fact, in the 2010-2011 study, there was two parts of that study, but the one with the homeowners, the residents, they almost got in a fist fight a couple of times. So it was a pretty emotional thing. What we found this time is a lot of that has calmed down. And that's helped us move forward with this plan. So it's been good. It's been good. Let me go here now. Here's the phase 1. The phase 1 was what Charlie and I decided we had to do in order to get the background information for our committee. And so council approved this going into phase 1. And it's 6 steps. I'm not going to read them all to you. There's one there, though, which is number 2. And that, again, talks about review the past parking studies. And I'm going to show you a map now. This is the original parking map for Sunset Beach. The original map that came about right to 2011. From when the island began to 2011. And if you look at the green is the parking. Wait a second, I got a brand new thing here. It's supposed to, yes, the green, that shows a little bit. The green is the parking. And if you look at this thing, there's parking all over the island up until 2011. You had all the numbered streets, and we got to remember, I will say this a few times during this presentation, you got to remember the numbered streets are 30-foot right-of-ways. That's the distance, as you think of your home in Sunset Beach, the distance between the power box to the power box from across the street. Power box to power box is 30 feet. That's not a lot of room. The road in Sunset Beach is pretty much 20 feet. And then you got 5 foot on each side for that little extra space. But anything in front of those power boxes, remember, is the right of way of the town. It belongs to the town. And that's something we're going to be working on as time goes on. Don't worry about that yet. But look at the parking all over the island. The only places are the northwest part, Bay and Inlet streets, and then you got the east end there with the North Shore, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th streets with no parking, but everything else is parking. So you got to keep that in your mind. What happened now with the 2010-2011 study, and why we mention that so much, is because we had a lot of paperwork on that. We could really read about it. And some of the people who were involved, we interviewed them. from that committee. So what happened with that, whoops, this one. What happened, there you go. What happened is all the parking went off the numbered streets. All the parking went off the numbered streets. And what you had left was, of course, North Shore. You had the fish streets. You had Main Street and Canal Street. That's the parking plan we're living with today. That's today. I remember back in July 22 there when we talked about Jim Varnum presenting to council about paid parking. I remember standing there the next day in an open house thing, and a lady came up to me and she said, "Why did you put parking in the fish streets? Why did you do that?" And I said, "I didn't do it." I said, "It's been parking in the fish streets forever. Since the island became the island, fish streets got built, there was parking on the fish streets forever." She said, "I don't believe you." So somebody near her sort of helped her out a little bit. And she said, "Wait a second, no one parks there. No one parks in the fish streets." And I said, "Yep, no one parks in the fish streets. I've been over there July 4th, and no one parks in the fish streets. And I've been there throughout the summer the past 2 years, and you might see a car there, you might see 2 cars there, I might see 4 cars there in all the fish streets. You're not sure whether it's somebody parking for the beach or it's a rental, and there's the people renting are parking in front of the house. You just don't know." Oops, I'm out of line. Okay, thank you. There's a camera there and I'm out of line. Anyway, so
You're out of line.
I'm out of line, yes. So all these streets became no parking. Now, was it a good move to make those no parking? Probably yes. 30-foot right-of-way. Remember, 20-foot road, 5-foot right-of-way from power box to the road. And what it was in those days, now think about this, cars parking on both sides of the numbered streets and traffic 2 ways. Imagine what that was like. It wasn't fun being in the streets. It was chaos. And at times it was chaos. Now the numbered streets are a little bit long and you know, people didn't park too far up there. But it was just a wild situation. But when parking came off the numbered streets, all the parking that went down the island both ways ended to a lot of extent. And so the idea now was a lot of parking was taking place in the middle of the island. It became more congested in the middle of the island. But it was probably a good move to do it. It certainly wouldn't last. It certainly was dangerous. And what they did, finally, they measured a fire truck and couldn't get a fire truck through once they had parking on one side, parking on the other side. And so they ended it at that time. So that's what we have today now. That's what we have today. So that's important for you to understand. The rest of the phase 1 was all background information. When we formed the committee, we went over that. We taught them all about what we had learned. And as Charlie said, the committee came together, and the charge of the committee now was, came right from council. Whoops, what'd I do? Oh, here it is. This is the charge for phase 2. Present options to the full council with justifications, explanations, and recommendations regarding a future parking plan for the island. That's what these gentlemen and myself gave this committee. Council had the final say on any and all decisions. So that's what we were working with. That's what we were working with. Now, because of the failure of prior attempts to address parking, we took a lot of time with this committee to try to see, in the beginning, you know, where are they coming from? Where are they going? Where are they coming from? And it was good. We just talked a lot, told them about phase 1, but at the end, what we did was we put together what's called a vision statement. A lot of committees have vision statements. And a lot of committees, you put together a vision statement, what you want to do, and you put it aside when you actually meet. But what we did is we lived by this vision statement every single meeting. Every agenda that went to the committee had the vision statement right on the top. We referred to that vision statement. And the idea here was try to focus us on what we wanted to do. So the recommendation, it said the Sunset Beach Island Parking Committee is to recommend the town council improve plan, and that's what it's all about, The committee will accomplish this by ensuring clearly designated parking places. The biggest complaint we had was designated parking places. Everybody wanted designated parking places. While taking into account property owner concerns, the distribution of parking, island capacity, and the potential need for paid parking. Now that could have changed a little bit as we went on. There was some things, we could have added to that really quickly, but we stayed with that. We used it, and it helped us an awful, awful lot. Now, two things. Just want to bring up two things before we go to the next step. Two things were important here that Charlie and I had learned on phase one that we had to let the committee really in on and hopefully keep that in the back of their minds all the time. And the first one was our island and Sunset Beach, we know, is going to increase in population because of development in our area. What's the biggest thing going on now? Development in the area. What about the roads? What about the infrastructure? All that kind of stuff. It's going to happen on the beach too. And a lot of the people who live around here are going to want to go to our beach. Which beach is the best beach around? Sunset Beach. I mean, we learned that very quickly, even in this committee, because we visited Ocean Isle, we visited Oak Island, we visited Holden Beach a number of times, and there's no question in my mind that we've got the best beach around. Now, the questions, though, we talked about, do we want to create as many parking places to park on the island as possible? Do we want to put 1,000 places on the island? Do we want to organize parking as best we can, realizing we cannot accommodate everyone? Thoughtful questions. What about the feel of our island? Laid back, family oriented. Will we change that with the decisions we make? Will we change what Sunset Beach looks like now and what we take a little pride in from our beach? And these were the things that were big looking at as we began to work. The second thing we realized is some of the parking streets, like I just talked about a few minutes ago, didn't have cars on them. It became obvious that many people who came to our island want to park as close to the beach as possible. Makes sense? They want to park as close to the beach as possible and rarely use some of the parking areas that we had. So those were the things we talked to everybody about as we moved on. So that's basically history. That's quickly, but that's basically the history of what we looked at. And the committee just rallied from there. The next part, we talk about the issues. And what we tried to do here is, and what we'll try to show you here, really, try to show the people who read this thing, all the various issues that the committee had to go through. There were a lot of issues, and they got really deep at times. Anything from, what do you think the number of parking places should be? What should be even the dimensions of the parking places on the island? What about parking lots? Possible. We examined all the streets. Could we go one way here? Could we change the street? What could we do to the streets on the island in order to help further some good, solid parking places moving forward? What about paid parking? We went to neighboring beaches and looked at their parking schemes and how they did it. Remember now, our island is the smallest island. Our island is the smallest island. That's very important. We went to other beaches, but every beach is different. Every island is different. Every island has their own problems. And when I said this to people, many people said, yeah, we have our own problem parking on the island, but we got that back. How do you alleviate congestion? Congestion. Think of Main Street. Think of the high points, the high point of the summer. Think of congestion. Those kinds of things. How do we ensure adequate parking for our businesses, for owners, their employees, their patrons, to make sure that our businesses can be successful and stay successful in Sunset Beach? And then you had to deal with ADA requirements. You had to deal with American Disabilities Act and making sure we have plenty of good places for people who have disabilities. So those are just some of the ideas that we had to deal with, talk about over and over and over again. So it was rather interesting. Now, let's go to part 3. Let's start talking about recommendations. That's what you're here for. Wanted to give you a little background there, but you want to hear about recommendations and where this committee is looking at now. And Charlie, anytime I mess up, let me know.
I trust you.
That's your job. That's your job. All right. Remember two things. A good parking plan, or whatever, a good plan. You don't just even talk about parking. A good plan is never cast in stone. Don't think these recommendations that we're going to talk to you about, that's it. There's nothing but this. Don't ever think that. You got it. A good plan has to be experimental. It has to be fluid. It has to be adjusted maybe at times, and it has to have some flexibility to it. So any good plan does that. And what we tried to do is put together a plan with just those things, where we can look at it and say, whoops, because we might make some mistakes here. We're doing some new stuff here. Will they work? All our research said they will work. But after 1 year or 2 years under this plan, maybe the council has to make a change. Maybe something we said didn't work. So you got to be ready for that kind of thing at all times. So a plan is a plan, but it can change as time goes on. Now, this was something that I did it again. This is something that was very, very important to the committee. Very important to the committee. And it's the key to what we tried to do here. Throughout the parking study, the committee based its recommendations for parking on estimations. We are citizens of Sunset Beach. We're not engineers. We were lucky enough to have 3 engineers on the committee. We were lucky enough, and I mean lucky enough, because they really helped on some things that we really needed help on. But we are citizens. We're not an engineering firm. We're going to make recommendations here that have to go, even if council approves them, we have to go to our engineering firm for the town and say, will this work? How does this look? What's possible? You got to get with NCDOT, North Carolina Department of Transportation, on some of these things. So we are just citizens. What the committee's presenting here is a concept of what the future parking plan could be for our island. A concept. Very important. Is the recommendation of the parking committee that the town utilize a professional engineering firm to design and survey exact locations for what we're recommending. So it's not just taking this thing, these guys saying, go for it, and we go out there and put it together in 2 weeks. This will take time. This will take time to come to fruition. It really will. But it's going to be done right. And these guys want it to be done right. There's no question about that. So plan is a concept. It's recommendations. It's estimations in a lot of places. Use of the town engineering firm. Therefore, the major recommendations are what we want to accomplish here. So you'll hear that tonight. What do we want to accomplish? How we get there will be reviewed by an engineering firm. So you're going to hear what we want to do here, and you're going to hear the big picture. And hopefully you go along with that. Now, let me go back again on this thing. It's tough when you got to do this in 2 hands. All right, the first step in our plan was, guess what? Designated parking, differentiated parking. That was the biggest complaint that led to this study. And so we conquered that as, well, I put it as number 1. We conquered it along the way. But the whole idea here was newly designated parking places, marked. So anybody that comes to the island knows where they can park. We'll go down a street, and I know I can park here because that's a designated parking place. It's just not parking in someone's driveway. It's just not blocking a driveway. It's the simple thing of people coming on and knowing where to park. One of our sister cities that we worked with was Surf City. We've talked about a few things because they have many of the same situations we do as far as right-of-way block problems but as far as parking was concerned, they started paid parking. And when they started paid parking, they also delegated parking places. So they took 2 steps right together. Started paid parking, then delegated parking places. and putting curb stops, everywhere a parking place should be so people know. The year before they started to do that, they wrote almost 800 parking tickets. Something like we wrote last year, I think. The first year with the designated parking places, they wrote less than 42. Now, why was that? Everybody knew where they could park. And so they were parking where they could park, and instead of parking where they thought they could park, which causes a lot of problems for our island, that's for sure. So what we looked at was how to designate parking. And this is the back of a truck, but on there, we did some research, and we looked at the National Forest Service. This is how the National Forest Service designates parking in the national parks. They use cedar, and they use treated cedar, painted. Now, will that work in the Sunset Beach? We've heard different stories on whether it can or whether it can't. I've heard more that it can work. Putting this type of wood into sand, and what is the island? It's sand. You don't have the rot that you would have in dirt or clay. That's just how we got into this researching. And this would be a good thing. Now, we cannot, by NCO-DOT rules, we cannot just put that thing on the ground and pound it in. We have to bury it. One thing NCO-DOT says about our Main Street, which is owned by the state, it says, well, you can put up a curb stop, but a curb stop can only be about this far above the ground. If we're driving along and lose control and hit one of these things sticking up like that, your car's going to fly if you hit one of those things. What the state wants is something you can just bump over, and you're not going to get in a major accident or go out of control. So that's something we've got to work on. But that's something, if accepted, our engineers will have to look at. Make sure that's what we can do. So curb stops buried in sand is the latest thing I learned about. It will now rot quickly. So that's a positive thing. Now, we also recognize that golf carts are smaller than cars, and they can take a smaller parking place. Now, one of the big complaints we heard over the last 2 years on the island was that golf cart is in a car spot. Golf carts were in car spots, and people didn't like that. You got a nice big spot and a golf cart sitting in the middle, and people didn't like that. So we took a look at how do we designate golf carts? How do we designate golf cart parking? Now, what we did then, we started talking about differentiating. When we talked about different parking places for golf carts, different parking places for cars. And so we decided then that what we'll do is differentiate, meaning you'll have separate parking places on the island for cars and trucks, okay, golf carts and motorcycles, and handicap. And what we've picked out was just yellow will be cars. Come on the island, any place is yellow, park your car. Any place there's red, put a golf cart. Any place there's blue, it's handicapped and accessible. Okay? So not only now do you designate parking, but you differentiate parking. Now, the one thing you worry about is somebody coming on the island for the first time and getting a little confused. But hopefully, being that simple, people would learn it very quickly and learn about it. We'd have to advertise it, that's for sure. We'd have to put it on the web. We'd have to get it out and educate people on this. But it can work pretty darn well, and we believe that strongly. So, what was this one? Yep. So that was our designated. Then we had to get into the size of parking spaces. In our UDO, and I can show you that. In our UDO, on the top there, for 2023, the new UDO says our parking place should be 9 feet by 18 feet. That's the minimum. That's the minimum, as it says there. But we started measuring. We even measured, as you saw down there, vehicles. What does a Dodge Ram? How long is a Dodge Ram truck? Well, that's 19 feet 4 inches. What about the Chevy Silverado? It's 19.3 feet. The Ford F-100, 19.3 feet. So what we did is we said, let's recommend then a 20-foot parking place for all the cars on the island, 20-foot parking place and all the cars on the island. So you'd start then with a parking place of 9 by 20 feet, and we should be able to easily put in the cars that we want to, the trucks that we want to. And again, I've heard people tell me, maybe you should go to 22 feet. But that will be up to our engineers to tell us. We're recommending, this size. And we think it'll work pretty darn well. The other thing we're doing for people on the island who have houses, of course, maybe on Main Street and people park in front of their houses, we're looking at sight lines. We're trying to make sure, and we actually did this, set up on the north side of Main Street, we set up parking places that gave homeowners coming out of their driveways some sight line. Many times you've had a truck backed up against your side of your driveway and a truck backed up against the side of your driveway. You can't see to get out. And I heard that complaint a lot of times. Can't see to get out. And it's dangerous. And so we try to give little sight lines. Now it's not 20 feet of sight line, it isn't. But maybe a good 5 feet of sight line or 6 feet of sight line gives you a good way of seeing as the cars park. Give you good sight lines from where they are parking. And we tried to work this out on some maps, and we did. So that'll be part of our recommendation also. So that's parking on the island. So think about that. Think about organization, delegation, or designation, and differentiation. And so those are the key words that we did and put together. So we're pretty pleased on that one. The second recommendation is Main Street. The goal of our parking plan for Main Street is to improve safety by reducing to the best of our ability the congestion that occurs when we mix traffic, pedestrians, bicyclists, and parked cars. I'm not a beach person. My wife will tell you that. I'm not a beach person. She drags me over there every Sunday to walk the beach. But I'm not a beach person. Charlie owns property on the island. He's the expert on the island. I had to learn. I had to go over there. I had to walk. I had to spend 2 summers over there, and I did. 2 summers over there, every facet of what happens over there. Every facet. But what always bothered me, and some of the committee members, was how congested Main Street gets during those 8 weeks in the middle of summer. From the second week in June, second week in August. Or some people said June, July, and August. But that's when you've got all the cars. And you put that congestion together of traffic and pedestrians, bicyclists, parked cars, it can be dangerous. I drove up and down there, I don't know how many times, checking that out. I thought the safest speed on that road was 12 miles an hour, period. That's what I thought the safest speed was. That's just me, though. That's just me driving and keeping track of all the things that are happening along that road. So what we did, our number one thing we did, was we decided to take all parking away from streets 1 through 27 in front. This is one of the most congested areas right here. I always shake, so don't worry about that. But right in that area between 1st Street and 27th Street, there's a lot of parking there. Take that away. Try to make that more open and less congested. More open and less congested. Will that work? I don't know, but we guess it will. We think it will. We hope it will help out in that area. We hope so. We hope so. So that was our hope. That's number one. Number two, in other areas of Main Street now, parking will be limited on Main Street to just one side of Main Street. And that will be limited to the north side, the side farthest from the beach. Think about Main Street now, those of you who are familiar with it. If we take parking off one side of Main Street and put it on the north side. Now people say, why didn't you put it on the south side, not the north side? The south side's closer to the beach. What we wanted to do on the south side is put the handicap parking. I'm going to talk to you about that and the reason for that. And on that south side is our sidewalk. How can we get people to feel comfortable out using the sidewalk I know everybody uses the road, but use the sidewalk instead of being in the road. How can we make that happen just naturally? Open it up. Maybe they'll use the sidewalk a lot more, we hope. We hope. Now, the north side was chosen to park on because there's many more parking places there. Many more parking places there right now. We can go up to 138 parking places along the north side. We'll open up the sidewalk, like I said, for pedestrians and better handicap parking. Handicap parking. We hope that will take some of the problems that we have on Main Street away. Some of the confusion on Main Street, we hope that will help an awful lot in moving forward. The sidewalk now, which is located on the south side, as I just said, hopefully will be more open. One more change. All mailboxes for Main Street will now be moved to the south side of the street. South side of the street. So what you do on Main Street now, you'd have parking on the north side, and that'll be people trying to park there and people parking there, designated spots. Then you would have no parking on the south side except for handicap, and that's going to be a big thing. I'll talk about that next. And you'd have the sidewalk opened up. Now we know there's a lot of mailboxes. For example, on the north side of Main Street, you count the mailboxes, we're just over 30 mailboxes the whole length of Main Street on the north side. You go to the south side, there's 80-some mailboxes on the south side. And you know, why they're there, people will tell you reasons why they're there, to block parking and all that kind of stuff. You hear all the stories. But we think then to move to the south side would really, really help in mail delivery. We have people here. I know one gentleman is sitting here right now who's had to get a post office box. He never gets his mail delivered during the summer because their cars are all parked there. And so that would take that way. That you just have to go across the street and get your mail. And there'll be plenty of open space to put mailboxes and do that. We went down just the other day, I went down Main Street and looked at moving mailboxes, about the 30 mailboxes, and how easy it would be. And it is pretty darn easy to do that. So the whole idea is make it safer, less congestion on Main Street doing this without giving up to parking too much. There isn't a lot of parking places on the right and the south side anymore. You start going over there and counting what we needed, 20-foot parking places and so on. There's not a lot of parking places. We counted at one point less than 40 on that side, based on what's there now. So hopefully that would work, and we really felt good about that and taking some of the congestion and some of the difficulty off being on Main Street. Now, let's look at handicapped accessible parking. Next recommendation. Our goal, obviously, is to make handicapped parking convenient. Right now, this is important to say to you, right now, with handicapped parking on 1st Street, 3rd Street, and 40th Street, we meet ADA recommendations from state and federal officials. And we have handicap, as you know. The gazebo lot has 4, streetscape lot 3. You know, there's handicapped parking places there. But all our new walkways, and this is something you may not know, all our new walkways are not only going to be handicapped accessible walkways, accessible. And 8 walkways we're building right now are going to be good for handicapped people, because at the end of that walkway, is a platform where you can put a roller wheelchair right down the walkway. And all those walkways, by the way, from the sidewalk to the beginning of the walkway will be paved in these new walkways. And so people can take a wheelchair, you can go up to the platform at the end, overlooking the beach, overlooking the water, and thus a handicapped person doesn't have to try to negotiate sand and all that kind of stuff. Just sit there and enjoy the beach, enjoy what you see, enjoy the birds, whatever. And all our new handicapped walkways will be that. So what we want to do is we want to put a parking place. And you see these little green lines underneath Main Street here. These are where the 8 are going to be this year, plus the 3 we already have. But then we'll have 11 this year. of handicapped accessible walkways or handicapped walkways on our town. And every time we put a new walkway in, as we move forward, we will put one of these handicapped accessible walkways and create another parking place on the south side of Main Street. So that would be for the handicapped parking. So we will have a great situation. As Lisa said, everybody's happy with us for doing this. The great situation for handicapped parking all along the south side of Main Street. And with that, you can open your doors. You'll have a paved way to the parking, a walkway. It'll be beautiful for people to enjoy our beach with multiple kinds of handicaps. So we're pretty proud of that. Right now, the walkways the 8 that are being built are 4th Street, 9th Street, 29th, 33rd, 34th, 36th, 37, and 38. You've probably seen construction going on, and that's what's, if you're get over the island, the pier lot there, you come right to the end of the pier lot by Main Street, you see guys working on wood all the time there. That's the guys building the walkways. So that's good. Yes, sir. Go.
Camera regulations keep us from building ramp at the end of the walkways.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's a good way to get a handicapped person down onto the beach. But since we're not allowed to do that in most every place, if we have these viewing platforms, the people can sit out there and enjoy the beach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's a great point. That's a great point. These walkways will have stairs down. Anybody can take the stairs down to the walkway, but certainly most people with handicaps cannot go down those stairs, so we have the viewing platforms there. So that's a great thing, I think, for the future. It's working now. We got 8 of them coming, and that'll be good. Next recommendation: parking lot. One of the things Charlie and I learned very early in this whole thing is that parking lots are much better places to park than on streets. I think maybe common sense says, yeah, it's nice to be in a parking lot. You might feel your car is safer than being on streets. That's the way it is. And we've learned that early on. And we tried to see if we could get a parking lot or 2 or 3. And one of the things if you read the 6 things that put up for phase 1, one of the things we had was maybe contact people who own lots on the island. Would they like to lease the lots to us for a parking lot? Now, if you live on the island, obviously, I don't think you want a parking lot next door to your house. I really don't. But we looked into it, and it was very, very difficult. I tried to call people who own parking lots and wound up calling dead people because they're in trust and all this kind of stuff, And then in order to use a parking lot, we have to have a public hearing and change the zoning of that parking lot. And so we felt that people just wouldn't go for that. We got to think like, people who live there, they just wouldn't go for that kind of thing. So what we did is we put out the word, anybody got some land that we could work with here. And what happened is we got in contact with one of the landowners who owns a pretty good chunk of land on the island. As you come over the bridge, up onto the island, the first business to your right is Sloan Realty. As all of you know who live on the island, go to the island. And what we were able to deal was the next 7 lots down from that building. 7 lots, 2 or double lots almost. And we met with the owner, and we were totally surprised when he simply said to us, I don't want to sell them, but they're yours forever if you want them. For lease purposes only, lease only. So we got to talking to him about this. It would be a long-term lease. And there's 2 things that our engineer said. Number 1, you got to get a long-term lease. Number 2, you got to make sure the town would have total control of the development of that property. Total control. That means the owner can't come in and say, oh, I don't like what you did there, do this or don't do that. And he gave us total control. Now, this is all verbal. Please, this deal has not been looked at by attorneys yet. And then we took some time and we negotiated a little bit because we didn't want the person to say, it's going to cost you $150,000 a year for this thing, you know. We couldn't do that, and we wouldn't even begin to do it. Very quickly, though, in 2 meetings, we got to a point where it was negotiable. So we stopped. And we said, okay, and he stopped, and we said, okay, now we'll wait, and we'll see if the committee recommends this, which they are doing, as a parking lot for the town of Sunset Beach. And we sort of talked a little bit, what were the reasons for taking this lot? Why should we take this lot? And we came up with some reasons. Now, one is the usual, using parking lots instead of parking on the streets. The flexibility to increase parking by expanding the lot if the need arises. Now, let me show you a picture here. Now, it's tough to see this, but we had an engineer with us. I'm out of the picture again. We had an engineer with us who did some drawings for us. And this drawing right now, right there, would probably hold about 78 cars in that lot. The key thing, if you can see it, there's a line right up here. There's a line right up there. That line, if you might not see it as you go by this lane, you look to the right, you see the condos there. But there's a drop-off before those condos. There's a drop-off, and it's a good one. It's a good one. Right now, this parking lot of 78 cars would fit on that land, fit with that land. The second drawing we did was another drawing. Now, see where that line is now? That line is right here and into the parking lot a little bit. But if we threw some more sand in there, and we have sand, the camera rules for our island are you never take any sand off the island. You can move sand around the island, you can't take any off. It's against the law. Can't do it. So right now we're putting extra sand in Majestic Oaks. We're going to build a beautiful park, but there's extra sand there. And we can make that wide enough to hold the lot. And that lot holds about 129, and we're saying now about 134 cars. So that's a couple of ideas. Now, where do those ideas go? They've got to go to our engineer. You know, if we agree here that, yes, we could lease that piece of land, we can maybe figure out how to do it. You can do it through paid parking. You can do it by just from the budget. It's up to this council how to deal with that. It's up to the council how to deal with that. So we strongly recommend, because as we go on here, the other things we said, the flexibility to increase parking, we just talked about, the natural flow of pedestrian traffic walking by many of our island businesses, hopefully help the businesses. And finally, it's a big one for me, finally the creation of a rustic space controlled by the town that adds to the character of the island. We can make it really a neat place. And that's, you know, if we can gain control of a little land on the island, that would be nice. That would be nice moving forward. So that is the parking lot that we hope, we have a feeling, we hope that would be approved by town council. Right now, our UDO, which is our United Development Ordinance, or the building codes of the town, right now, we would have to asphalt that parking lot by our own codes. And we said, no, that's prohibitive. That's too expensive. So what we did is we talked to our people here, our planning director, council of governments people, and they said, you can change that. We have 3 lots on the island right now that are grass lots. You know, the pier lots are grass lots, and lots across the street. Technically, you know, nobody's going to tell them to asphalt their parking lot because they're grandfathered by far. We're not going to say that. But well, let's make them all legal. And so if we wanted to grass our lot to be like the other 2 lots, great. That would be wonderful. Or use some other impervious or pervious surface so that water can get down through. So the committee understands that the council can choose to fund the lease through paid parking or other means, but it's up to the council to deal with that. But we think this would be a good thing. Let our engineers get a hold of it and see what it really looks like would be good. In this parking, when we counted numbers of parking places, we used the number of the smaller lot, 78 parking places. First, our committee sort of talked about let's start with that. And this is this flexibility thing I talked about earlier. Start with that size lot, move to the next one if we need it. But our engineers may say, oh my gosh, it's much more inexpensive to do the whole lot right off the bat. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But the concept is a parking lot. And that is a big move for this town. The next one. Now we go down. Whoops, let me go back again. Let me go down now to these streets right down here. These are numbered streets 7 through 15. 7 through 15. And many times you don't reinvent the wheel. You go to Ocean Isle and look at their parking opposite their walkways. Every couple you find these side streets where there's cars on them parked on a diagonal. Maybe 16 cars sometimes, 22 cars sometimes, 24 cars sometimes. That's their major parking over in Ocean Isle. You go to Oak Island, look at their main street, look at their walkways, and then go across the street and you got these small streets that are lined with parking. In both of those instances, it's one-way traffic and parking on the street. The goal of the committee here was to help move parking away from the center of the island in order to spread out parking. We found that these numbered streets, mentioned above, are very short, and they are, with few houses facing the streets. There's only 3 houses facing the streets in all those. And what you basically have, you have the beginning of the street and you got 2 houses facing Main Street. The end of the street, you got 2 houses facing Canal Street. And according to the people I talked to, they're not thoroughfares. They don't have cars flying and down them and up them all the time. But we did say, with these numbers, we did say 2 things. 9th Street, for example. Let me go back to say, we worked around the houses that were there. We're not going to say to anybody on those streets, move your driveway, or do this, or do that. We worked around every impediment we had there. And we took 9th Street, which does have 3 driveways on it, and said, we won't park any cars there. We'll park golf carts there. We can put 2 or 3 or 4 golf carts there. That'll be nice. 13th Street, you need a way through. You need a way through. 13th Street comes up from Main Street, as you know. There's Cobia, and that takes you back. That takes you back into North Shore, there to Riverside area, and the other 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th streets. So we left that totally open for 2-way traffic. That's getting in and getting out the areas. You come off Canal Street, wherever you're coming from. It's important. That'll help you get off, what I say, Canal Drive, Cobia, North Shore, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th streets. All right. These streets, however, are narrow also. The right-of-way is the same thing, 30 feet. 30 feet. So we had to take these streets, and we did a lot of studying over there. Dustin's over here. Dustin and I got together a number of times, measuring, trying to figure out, can you do diagonal parking, angled parking? Can you do straight parking? Can you do parallel parking? How can you make this work? Finally, we came up with an idea. One of our engineers on the committee who had designed these kinds of things looked at us and said, you don't want to do that. That's not a smart thing to do. So we told him to design it. And he did. And what we looked at here is how do you take, and it's hard to see this thing, but you can see the street. This is 11th Street, I believe. Yes, 11th Street. And what you do is you make the street one way. Now, again, you've got the 30-foot right-of-way, 20-foot road, 5 feet on either side, 5 feet on either side, which is the right-of-way that the town owns. And so with this design, all you do worry about is the road. 10 feet on one side is for parking, 10 feet on one side is for traffic. Simple, plenty of room. When you put 10 feet on, for example, this one on the right side going towards Canal Street, go out to Main Street, and Dustin did this to me. He says, Main Street is narrower than that 10-foot road. We went out to Main Street, and you go from the bike lane, the white line is the bike lane, to the center of the road, it's 8.5 feet. This is wider than Main Street. If you count the bike lane being, don't go on the bike lane. So we looked at this, we decided this could really work. This could really work with 13th Street being open, 9th Street being no parking because of driveways. So we're going to recommend this to the town council. So that is we felt was a good plan. It was spreading traffic down the island. Spreading traffic down the island. There'll be a total of 33 parking places. 33 parking places in that area. So that's, oh, I know the other thing, we talk about safety. For anybody that parks in the street, for example, we got them on all the streets like this, you notice right here is that 5-foot right of way. And now any family can park in that spot, get all their gear together, and walk up the right of way. And so they don't have to walk up the middle of the road. Now, most people choose to walk up the middle of the road. We know that on the island. We know that. You can go over there anytime. Everybody's walking up the island just talking away. They're not paying attention to the cars. But that is a safe way to get to, you get the Main Street, across Main Street walkway, and you're on the beach. So safety there, we were very proud of being able to recognize that, draw it that way, and have it come out that way. All right, that's the next one. Next one, golf cart parking. Golf cart parking. We're going to start a new trend on the island. We'll see. The goal was to have parking spaces reserved solely for golf carts, motorcycles parking on the island. There has been a major increase in golf carts on the island. If you live there, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I talked to Julie's Rentals. You ever see those trucks over there? All the time during the summer. That's why I called them. That's the one I saw all the time over there. And I talked to Julie and I said, is business growing on the island? Is it growing, getting stronger? She says, unbelievably. Unbelievably, she said. They're expecting a better year in 2024 than they had in 2023, and that was better than 2022 and 2021. And a lot of people, of course, who rent a golf cart. And that's the thing. If you come over on this side of the island now, this side of the island, come over to the mainland, what's happening? Around me, what's happening is golf carts have become a status symbol. Right, Bobby? Golf carts have become a status symbol. And people are buying them. And if you can get to 35 miles an hour, you can go over the bridge. You can go over the bridge. Sometimes slowly uphill, a little faster downhill, but you can go over the bridge. So this is what we looked at with golf cart parking. Now, here's the plan. The plan will be to park, and this is a real, you can see this one better, but this is, I think, 34th Street. What the plan would be, now we tried to do a lot of stuff with numbered streets. How can we park? Where can we park? Well, can we get a car in there? Can we get cars in there? We just canceled all those things out as we went on. We went on and went on. Finally, somebody said, what about golf carts? What about golf carts? You got this 5-foot right-of-way here. Whoops, let's try that better. 5-foot right-of-way here. Golf carts are 4 foot wide. They have no doors to open into traffic. And why can't we, right at Main Street, and that's Main Street, down here, and 34th Street, why can't we, right in the beginning of the streets, right off Main Street, put some golf cart parking? The reason being is if you study this, the houses on each side usually face Main Street. So what you've got here is the side of the house. The right away the town owns, right in the side of the house, no driveways coming out or anything for many of these streets. Now some have driveways and we can't park there. As I said, we worked around all the natural problems. But if you put 4 golf cart places there, and of course, see the NP right here, you've got to have the 30-foot distance between the road and the first parking place for sight lines. So you can get to the end of your street and you can see what's coming. You've got to do that. And then we put in 4 places like this. The first and the last one, when we put in these 4, what we did was the average golf cart is 12 foot long. So the bigger ones, we're talking the bigger ones too, the longer ones. What we did was we put a 12-foot space here and a 12-foot space here and 15 feet in the middle. So a golf cart can easily pull in and use the spaces. Now, if you're thinking here, you'll be saying, my gosh, if you do that down many of the numbered streets, and look at these, see these little green lines coming into the numbered streets, these little green lines, that's the streets we've designated 4 places. The only way we'd go above 4 places if there's a vacant lot. The next lot was vacant. Then we put maybe 4 more in, but that's it. And really, as you look at this and go over and look at this yourselves, I use the term, we're actually tucking in the golf carts right along here, and they shouldn't cause any problem. You're not changing, not making one-way traffic on these like before we talked about. You're leaving them two-way traffic. Golf carts come in, they park. But if you think about this, golf carts are going to have the best parking on the beach. So I said to this Julia, I think what if we did this? Oh, she said, you may be starting a trend here. So we don't know. Will people buy golf carts just to enjoy the beach and not have to worry about parking their cars? I'm not sure. And as we all know now, these renters over here who rent golf carts, they drive their golf carts to the main street to park. And the problem, again, was golf carts parking in car spots. And so this would do away with that. Car spots would be car spots. Golf carts would be golf carts. And that would be it along Main Street. So that's that's a designation now of golf carts and motorcycles could be in those spaces. Okay, we're almost done. Canal Drive. Canal Drive. As you know, Canal Drive is a parking lot, a parking street. It's always been a parking street. Canal's down here. And what we do, if you've ever looked at Canal Street, from up by Palm Cove, look down Canal. Drive. I'm sorry. If Stuart was here, he would have hollered from the audience. Greg will tell you that. Yes. So I do that all the time. So you've got Canal Street here. If you look down from Palm Cove, what you see is you look to the right, which is the northern part of the street, away from the beach. You'd see these little right-of-ways. You couldn't possibly park a car there. They got to be tires in the road, and no tires on the road in Sunset Beach. On the left side, you see a wide open area for parking. What happened is when they put the road in, and this happens all over Sunset Beach, this just isn't the island. When you put the road in, the center of the road isn't the center of the right-of-way. If the center of the road is the center of the right-of-way, you're equidistant, right to the power boxes. But you've got now on the south side, nice parking. On the north side, hardly anything. So what we did is we then said, we'll take parking off the north side, because there's only a few parking places anyway. Take it off, put the mailboxes there, over there, and they're mostly there right now. So put the mailboxes over there. And what we then did was we looked, don't forget now, motorcycle parking stops at sort of at 9th Street here. Motorcycle, what I just said earlier, stops sort of at 9th Street. And you got to come down here, and people were saying to us, can we get some, more motorcycle and golf cart parking? So what we did, if you notice, and you probably know if you know the island, up on Canal Street here, there's these little darker lines where there's a walkway from Canal Street to Main Street. Canal Street to Main Street. And so we put a couple of golf cart places on each of those walkways. So a golf cart, needs smaller space. A golf cart can park there, unload, walk to Main Street, walk on the beach. Again, trying to get it closer so people want to park over there, want to park on Canal Street. So that's our goal there. Mailboxes on the south side, or north side, I'm sorry, parking on the south side and Canal. And that, we think, would help Canal an awful lot. And what we wanted to do there is address the narrow size of the right-of-way on the north side of Canal Street. We're getting there. Next one is this is what we observed big time. And so that's going to come in later, is basically now the original numbers show that we should have on North Shore, we should have 164 parking places. nobody parked on North Shore up here. However, one of our committee members who lives on 40th Street assured us that parking occurred right here on Sunset Boulevard and North Shore and North Shore and 40th Street. And it does. We went over, observed this, especially on the bigger days in the summer. That's where some people park. And some people use 40th Street down there to go to Bird Island and so on. So those spots are used. So we will have 41 spots there. But now we won't have 164, but 41. So that's good there. Also, the fish streets here were not parked on. Have rarely been used. So basically, in the plan here, we left them blank. We left them blank for now. We don't know the future, but we're saying people didn't park there. Why are we worrying about them? Why are we worrying about them? Now, almost the last thing, the number of parking places on Sunset Beach now. We had to get to a conclusion here at the end of what number was the number we wanted to get to. What number is the number? We had worked hard putting this plan together, and how we did it was, and this is, I need to maybe really apologize to some people who tried to go online on our website and look at the updates about parking. We had said we would do that. And we did one, and we did two showing the issues, but there were no more after that. And people asked me, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you keep doing this? The committee took a little turn with a number of meetings to go. And what we did was we started saying we can come to some kind of agreement on, for example, parking on Main Street. But we didn't come to a consensus, so we put it aside. And we started putting things aside. It was like pieces of a puzzle. Started putting things aside here. And we made our minds up on all this stuff in the last two meetings, basically. The last two meetings, we made our minds up on all this stuff. But the big thing was, then we had to see how many parking places we had, does that fit in, and all that. So here's what happened. To begin discussion, we had to first determine how many parking places we now have on the island. With this plan right here, how many parking places do we have? Realistic parking places. Realistic. If you go on anything that's official from the town, they will say, the town says, we have 738 parking places. And that is not counting the pier lots. Not counting the pier lots. Now, if you know as we learned, if you know anything about parking here, there is not practically 738 parking places. And I think maybe you got that through this presentation. You know, you got to take no parking up here. You got to take no parking basically on the fish streets. And the parking has been coming down on the island because we love to put parking places in front of vacant lots, and they build on the lots. And there goes those parking places. And then you have people get in the right of way a little bit to block parking, and that's been effective too, to block parking. So what we did is then you look at a CAMA land use plan, buddy. Think of that 738. Then look at our CAMA land use plan, the 2017 CAMA land use plan, which looks at development in Sunset Beach. And they say we have 614 parking places on the island, including the pier lots. That left us in a mess. Which one do you believe? So we had to do our own research. That took some time. We had to get out, and anybody who worked with me, counting parking places on Main Street, every time you go down, you come up with a different number. Every time you come down, you come up with a different number. But we had to do that, so we had to do approximation of what numbers we had. So we did it. And the number of parking places for cars, trucks, and golf carts on the island right now that are being used, again, let's talk about what's being used, is 506 spaces. 506 spaces. And that does not include, according to Dustin here, we never talk about the pier lots and the numbers in the pier lots. So it's 506, not counting the pier lots. Our new parking plan, as we added up things and added things in and all that, we came to 552 spaces. Now, the committee realized the following. You got to, again, you got to put common sense into this stuff. If we put 1,000 more parking places on the island, what would the island people say? And you couldn't get mad at them for saying, why are you doing this and ruining our island? If you put 1,000, not 1,000, but if you put 400 less parking places on the island, the people on the mainland are going to say, we're not going to be able to park. What are you doing to us? So what we did is we tried to come towards the middle as before, is what we tried to do. Come to the practical number we had before, and we popped above it a little bit. And so that's fine as far as you're concerned. And then you wind up with this kind of parking. What it does, it brings parking down towards the beach more. Down towards the beach more. And it should, we hope, be a realistic number for the future. Now, everybody asks, how many spaces in the pier lots? We have not, we don't go and count spaces. Now, as Gary will tell you, he's marked as 2 smaller lots, so it's easy, But when you have a wide open lot like he has, you never know. You can pack them in, or you can make them wide apart. But we say, and we think we're high on this, but we say 273 spaces for the pier lots. We don't know that. But that's, if that's going to be designated better in the future, that'll help. We don't know. But that's pretty much it. So what you do now is you take the 552 number and you add the pier lots, and there's plenty of parking. And our committee said, that's enough. 552 was right a little shorter than what we had hoped for, but you add the 273 on there, and there is plenty of parking on our island, we think anyway. And we hope that with this plan, that we are not really changing the world on that island. We are not really changing the feel of the island. We're moving traffic around, we're moving parking around. We're designated parking. It'll be easier for people to park. Hopefully less confusion, hopefully safer. But we're not changing it all around. And so we think that this could be a good future for the island. The last thing we looked at was paid parking. And as Charlie said, the decision of paid parking was very simple for the committee. As we looked and researched paid parking, that came up a lot with the committee because that's an emotional one. And you wind up talking about it, even though you're not deciding on it, you talk about it. What was the article from Oak Island? Remember Oak Island? And this was their first year of paid parking. They receive a check for $1,200,000 from their paid parking. Their commissioners were astounded. And their people were amazed. They even had town council meetings to decide what to do with the money. But many of these beaches need beach renourishment, and a lot of the beaches use paid parking for beach renourishment. Or Holden Beach, for example, for buying a pier, or there's a reason for doing these types of things when they're really needed. And the town council makes that decision. Our committee decided we don't want to hit that with this committee. And here's the reason, and I respect this 200%. The committee, I'm going to read this because they wanted me to read this. The committee felt strongly that paid parking should not overshadow the important components of our plan, which are necessary to organize parking on the island. We got to organize parking first. The committee wants to emphasize that our recommended parking plan, which clearly defines the location of each type of parking space, is a very important first step before addressing paid parking. And I respect that. I think if we can take some time and make this work, make this plan work, if it's accepted, if it's good, we've got to hear what the citizens have to say. If we can do this, then we can take the next step. And the next step becomes, and what all the beaches say, next step becomes having our day trippers help fund the cost of our beach and our island and so on as parking and so on. And you can do a lot of money with that. You do a lot of different things with that money. Many people say you can only take that and use it for parking and the streets and all that kind of stuff. But what Surf City did, what the beaches do, they put a bill into the legislature that allows them to use it for anything, and a bill passes all the time. So you can use it for anything, any expense the town has. So that can be the future. Now, the committee also said, and it was their opinion, it wasn't consensus now, not consensus. The committee said paid parking on this island of Sunset Beach is probably inevitable in the future. Whether you like it, not, it's probably inevitable. Some people will say to us, oh, will that cut down people coming to our beach? It could, you never know. Or, you know, we need it for these expenses or whatever. But that's something this council's got to decide. The committee felt we never saw any of the islands around here where the citizens came forward and said, we want paid parking. It's the councils that make those decisions usually in the islands that we know around here. As far as, there's two left, right, with free parking, Ocean Isle and Sunset Beach. And when I go to a meeting and talk to somebody from Ocean Isle, one of their councilmen, they'll say, you going paid parking? And I'll look at them and say, are you going paid parking? And that's the joke. Whoever goes first, the word is the other guy's got to go, or you're going to get so many people on your island because it's free. It'll be crazy. I don't know if that's true, but that's what we say back and forth. And Ocean Isle has decided, I think, not to go in 2024 at all. And obviously, to put this in place, it's going to take a couple of years for us to get this in place moving forward, we think. There's not a lot of engineering to do in this plan. There's not a lot of engineering to do, but we got to get it organized, we got to get it engineered, and we got to go from there. Now, just a couple of things in closing. The Beach Parking Committee believes strongly that their recommendations to Town Council reflect a well-thought-out practical solution to parking issues that have plagued town's beachgoers, visitors, and island property owners for many years. This could be, we hope, the first successful beach parking committee in probably in the history of the island. The parking plan does not make radical parking changes on the island. The committee continually took into account what is best for citizens who live on the island and the many people who visit our beach each year. The parking committee tried to adjust the location of parking, to get parking closer to the beach. The committee tried to make the parking plan flexible, and there's a lot of flexibility in this thing, and you can move up and down. Finally, we firmly believe that safety on the island roads is at the core of our recommendations. And all the time we talk about safety. And at times we didn't know we were talking about that. We'd talk about something and you go away from it, you say, that's going to be a safer environment, a safer place to park. So, moving forward now, what's happened here, the council has had their plan, they've reviewed it, and they've got it in front of them again today. You can get that plan tomorrow morning. Let me go back here. You can get this plan tomorrow morning off the internet, off the town website. Then tomorrow afternoon, 2 to 4. Stop by if you have questions. Stop by if you have concerns. Write us an email. Just sit down and write a little email. Say it didn't sound too bad, but here's something that we could change. Thursday is 10 to noon. Tomorrow 2 to 4. And email us with any of your questions. The next job we're going to look at with this group, we're going to start discussing this if we get some, depends on the feedback now. We're going to be discussing this at the March 4th council meeting. We don't have a lot of time in a council meeting to discuss this, okay? If you know our meetings, they go on. There's a lot of decisions to make. But we can introduce a little bit at the March 4th meeting to begin the talk, begin the discussion. And then we can work up what you call an implementation plan. It's the idea of what's going to be the first step, second step, third step, fourth step, if you want to, continue with this plan. And these guys, with Charlie and I, are going to be the ones making that decision moving forward. And then you've got to probably get the engineers involved, Then you got to probably figure out cost, and then you do it or not. That's the thing. That's the steps you have to make. But it's going to take some time. Everybody's got to realize this. The number of people that said to me, "Is this for this summer? Are we going to have this in place?" No, no. There's work to do because you got to do it right now. And we got to do it according to state law, CAMA. We got federal laws too, with ADA stuff. And we got 2 of our main roads on that island owned by the state, and they've got to be with us pretty much every step of the way. So that's going to take some time. In closing, for me, I just want to say thank you for paying attention. You guys are good. Is there any committee member like to say something at this time? Do you?
Julie?
Come on up. You'll know you. Now I got to turn the microphone on here. Testing.
It's
Pretty
on.
good. Don't go anywhere?
I don't be everybody.
Okay.
So yes, I'm Julie Gentry. I'm one of the business owners that sat on this committee. And first of all, I just thank you guys sitting up here for allowing this committee to happen. For me, as a new owner, it was very enlightening. I see things that homeowners don't see, that visitors don't see, or that the day trippers don't see. I do see the unsafe roads that we have. And as a business owner, I want as much traffic as possible. We want that to come in. So I have a totally different view of why parking is important. But I also have been told, and I believe it, that you guys are looking out for businesses as well. So when the decisions are made, I hope that you do not only keep the homeowners off the island and on the island, but also the businesses in your mind, making decisions moving forward. There's very few of us, and we love what we do. I grew up on this island. I learned to swim in the Continental when I was 5. I am 50, almost 60 years old. So I have seen a lot of changes on this island. But the thing I can tell you that hasn't changed is the memories that are in my heart. They're imprinted on my heart forever, and Sunset Beach will always hold that special place. So sitting on this committee allowed me to be able to keep Sunset Beach first. Not what was best for me, not what was best for you, but that beach. We protect it, we love it, we cherish it, and we want it to be here for your kids. And for those people that come onto Sunset Beach and they come into my store and they're like, this is different. This place is different. It is different. The people, the businesses, our vacationers, everyone makes it different. So when decisions are made, for those that are sitting in this room, please be mindful that we did our very best to look out for everybody. I want to especially thank Mike and Charlie because you guys attended the meetings. They never pushed their thoughts or ideas on this committee. They never said, we think you should do this. We were never pushed to believe one way or another. They literally sat, mostly Mike, handwriting as fast as he could, the ideas that were being thrown around. They were truly there to moderate and just to be their support. So for the committee, and I think I can say that for all of us, it was our decision. And so now we leave it up to you guys to do what's best for the island, to do what's best for Sunset.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. It was very nice. She said it better than I could ever say it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Are you turning it over to us?
I'm going to turn it over to you now, and don't forget these things, and thank you. You've been wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Good job, Mike.
You don't have to do that.
Good job, Charlie.
Charlie?
I have one more thing. I want to remind everybody and advise you in case you don't know, All the beaches in North Carolina are public trust land. That means anybody can use them. And you're certainly welcome at Sunset Beach. One thing we can't do is provide a parking place for everybody who wants to come here. And with the thousands of houses that are being built around here, I dread to see what comes of that. So anyway, thank you all for being here.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Okay, and again, first off, thank you, Charlie, Mike, Parking Committee, for your conscientious and very hard work over the last year and a half or so that you've put in to come up with this plan. It's something that we have needed for a long time. Now, for council members, this is not the time for us to discuss or debate or go into anything. I will open the floor to you if you have something significant that they missed, did not do. Pete?
Just to stress what Mike and Charlie referenced about, and John opened the meeting with this, that we have two meetings, 2 hours each, one tomorrow and one on Thursday. Those kinds of meetings where we will be here, I can't be here tomorrow, but I'll be here the next day, but there'll be representatives here where we can have conversations. And we can be looking maybe at some of the maps and stuff that Charlie and Mike and the committee has come up with. But that kind of interaction with town council is key to us initiating a successful program. We need your input and your thoughts. So please don't be shy.
Thank you, Pete. One of the things that you mentioned, send emails. Mike, you said send emails or phone calls. I'd suggest what we've done in the past. We've had 3x5 cards in there.
We will do that.
And a box.
Yes, that's going to happen.
I encourage people to come in. Also encourage you to identify where you live in this perspective. I mean, we have a number of major audiences that have different impacts. We've got the group that live on the roads that are actually going to have the parking that's directly impacted. We have the people on the island that are affected by parking, but they're not getting the parking directly in front of them. We've got the people who own on the island but don't live here that have a perspective. We have our many mainlanders who use the island. We have our businesses on the island, and then we have the great community that surrounds the island, jealous of where we live and all the benefits that we have. So identify where you are, because that will help the perspective to understand where your comment is coming from. With that, does anybody else have last comment before I close this meeting? May I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, thank you, everybody. The meeting's closed.